because Bach wrote it for well temperament, and you lose everything. And just because it's a modern piano, there's no reason not to tune it in.
Hi, my name is David Summerhays, and I'm a pianist and piano technician based in Montreal, Quebec, originally from Chicago. And when I bought this awesome piano behind me, I finally had a chance to try some different ways of tuning it. And I just fell in love with different ways, not equal temperament, different ways of tuning the piano. So I was trying to explain to friends and family and people I tune for what I'm doing and why I care. And it's hard to explain, it's very subtle. So I came across on YouTube these videos put together by Carl Radford, and I thought it was wonderful. I sent him some fan mail, basically, and I said to him, I'm really curious about these videos and what your message is and why you're putting all this effort into it. I could just ask you, or I could interview you. And I bet other people would enjoy it just as much as I did. So have a listen. So I think we better start by introducing ourselves.
All right.
David Summerhays, I guess you'd say a piano tuner, but not really a piano technician out of Montreal, kind of to say beginner, sort of getting into it. So that's me. I learned tuning in Chicago, but anyway,
But you're also a pianist and piano teacher, right?
Yeah. Pianist less so. I'm not a fabulous pianist. I started late. I started learning when I was 17. But yeah, piano teacher I can definitely do. Beginner, intermediate. So I would say I do that more than I tune. But I do love it. I love getting into it.
And you grew up in my area here in Chicago area, and moved to Montreal apparently.
Yep, that's right. Evanston native. Yeah. Now I live in Montreal, but I did my tuning. I learned how to tune in Chicago as well.
Oh, really?
So yeah.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you had said that.
Famous Joe Kahn. Yeah.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, or not so famous as it turns out. At least he's not infamous. That's good.
That's good. No, I'm sure he's a great guy. He must have done a good job.
Yeah, I like him. So yeah, and I mean, I watch your channel, and I had some questions. I can start pitching them at you. I mean, you start with, I walk down the street. I don't meet a lot of piano tuners. I don't know about you.
Well, I actually do, but that's a different story.
I'm sure you meet them, but is it walking down the street?
Not walking down the street so much, no.
Yeah, it's not your average profession. I mean, if you just knock on random doors, I work the census here in Canada. We didn't come across many of us.
Really?
So you got to wonder, how does somebody get into this? And I think there's different paths that people take to get there.
For sure. There's a lot. The thing about piano technicians in general is they're very much individualists, and they're very much like to beat their own drum and do it their own way, everything. And that's part of the attraction of the business in the first place, is just that you can be your own boss and do what you want. And with that, to a person, they're very individualists, I think, and myself included. So yeah, I think it's an unusual profession. It used to be more common when I started into it. I've been doing this now for over 30 years. So I started when I was 2. Just kidding. No, it's a great profession. I really enjoy it. Yeah, it's not common, and people say, "How did you get into this?" It's unusual, but I see a lot of piano technicians on a weekly basis through the guild and through other ways, and so it's not uncommon for me. I've been doing it for so long too. But I can see how to most people, and plus pianos are less common than they used to be. Even when I started in the career, it used to be in every household you'd see pianos, but nowadays it's not as much that way. Computers and digital pianos have kind of taken over more, and so piano tuners are more like the chimney sweeps in some ways. We bring just as much luck, it's an unusual profession, but I think it's one that's not going to go away. I mean, I think pianos are going to be around for centuries more, and that's nice for job security.
Yeah, and how'd you get into it? Like, did you just turn 18 and say, this is my profession, or?
Well, no, I, like you, started a little late playing piano. I started when I was 15, and suddenly discovered there was a piano in our house and started playing and played relentlessly and nonstop all summer long that summer, and drove my older brother nuts because he was living in the basement at the time, trying to be individual and working a night job. And so he was hearing piano all the time when he was trying to sleep. So he was not happy about that. But I played and played, and that's all I did, and learned pretty quickly, and just loved it. And one day a key started sticking, and I didn't even cross my mind to have Mom call a piano technician. That, I don't know why I didn't think of it. I just wasn't going to wait for that anyway. So I took the piano apart and figured out what the problem was. It was, the slip in front of the key slip in front of the keys was binding against the front of the key. So I took that off and I took it to my dad's shop and I sanded it down with a belt sander, which is the incorrect repair. Don't do that. You're supposed to actually shim it out away from there. But it worked. And so a piano technician was born, I guess. But it was many, many years until I was able to actually start tuning. I went to, I was in theater. I was studying piano and theater, and wanted to be a performer in musicals and things. And so I started doing that out of college and even before out of college. And in college, I looked for piano tuning classes, but there was no such thing. And it wasn't until I was doing West Side Story in Minneapolis, and the piano tuner came to tune the pianos, and I started talking to him, and he said, "Yeah, you can pick up some tools in the book, and I'll show you a few things." And he actually turned out to not really be that good of a teacher. He didn't really know how to teach. He just kind of did it naturally somehow. And but he recommended I go to guild meetings, and recommended I check out the University of Minneapolis, University of Minnesota, I should say. And there was a great head technician there who kind of took me under his wing. He said, "Sure, come on in. We'll throw you in a piano practice room, and we'll get you going on tuning." And he was great. And I wasn't there that long, but it was enough to really whet my interest in it, and even more so. And when I got back to Chicago after that gig was over, it was kind of a natural progression. I came to Chicago and I started looking around for apprenticeships. No one would take me on, and because it's quite a time commitment to teach somebody. It's also a financial commitment and all that. And it was understandable, but I found the Piano Technicians Guild chapter here that was very welcoming, and they were wonderful, and they kind of took me under their wing, and they said, "Sure, come on in." And they were a real friendly group, and they said, "Here's the library, here's the books, here's the videos." I read everything. I watched every video that they had taken for chapter meetings for the past, 10 years, and basically self-taught. I mean, the guild, in a way, it very much helped, with their seminars and annual conventions. So I did that, but really kind of learned on my own and on the job by doing. And I'm sure there's a lot of piano technicians that do it that way. But they were great, and they helped me a lot. And I've been doing it now for a long time. So it's a wonderful. I really enjoy tuning. It's something that it's funny because back when I was first starting, I had a friend who was very into the occult and, kind of, not the occult, but the spirits of the universe. And she wanted to give me this present for my birthday of going to see a psychic. And I wasn't into psychics, but I said, sure, why not? Nothing to lose. And I was very skeptical. And he was going, oh, and he said, "What do you do for a living?" I said, "Shouldn't you know that?" And he said, "But okay, I'm a piano tuner." Piano tuner, that's very interesting. So you like vibrations? And for the moment, I was like, okay. And then I thought, after the fact, I was thinking, I kind of do like vibrations. It's really interesting, because part of what I really enjoy about tuning, and it's a strange thing, it's like an organization job. You're an organizer. People who are good at organizing are probably going to be good at least oral piano tuning, because it's sort of like you like to organize sounds and organize these vibrations in certain ways that makes musical sense, and that's how I kind of got into it, and I, for some reason, I enjoy vibrations. I will admit it.
Well, and as you say, because piano tuners are, it's not only the financial aspect, it's because piano tuners are so individualistic and so like used to working at their own pace. I feel like getting an apprenticeship is really hard. Even here in Montreal, I hear a lot of tuners have their cards close to their chest. They don't train a lot of people in how to do their work. And then there's people who are super generous, of course, and
Yes.
you're so lucky when you come across them because they're such gems.
Yeah, I think that's true. Some people shy away from the guild or stay away from it completely because they want to be independent. And some people, the ones that are in the guild, tend to be more sharing and more open about it. But yeah, I mean, finding the right mentors are huge. I mean, that's key. And I certainly had my share of certain particular ones in this area that were responsible for my undoing.
Yeah, it's funny. Your story is really similar to mine. I mean, just discovering piano at age 17 and
Yeah.
just going at it. And I remember my apprenticeship was Joe Kahn came by. He was our piano tuner. He got recommended by someone knowledgeable, and he came by and you tune a family's piano, they're like on the computer, they're doing their other thing, they're in the other room. Not my family. We all sat around and watched him do it. And like the five of us, my two younger siblings, and I was the most interested because I was the most interested in playing. So, and sure, I mean, the whole family might sit around for like a few minutes, like, oh, that's curious. But then after a while, by the time you get to like the temperament octave, even it is, you're pretty bored just watching it. And again, not really my family. We were sort of like, this is so cool. And we're just asking lots of questions and saying, isn't this note a little bit out of tune? And what about this thing? And he just loved us, because for him, he loves pianos and he loves,
Sure.
He loves what he does. So, the other day I was working out a Baldwin and, it took him like 5 hours to tune our piano.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, we had so many questions.
Yeah, we're pretty chatty bunch as for sure, which is part of the joy of the job, actually, is meeting the customers and talking with people and their pets and their dogs and their cats and their kids. And that's part of the fun. I mean, which is why, during the pandemic, it was, not as much fun because we all had to keep, away from everybody. Now it's starting to open up. It's so much more fun, again, to be able to relate with people and, just like everybody. But that's true. And I think it's more rare for people, kids especially. They usually gather around and look at things, and that's a lot of fun for me. And they'll ask questions, but rare are the times when somebody sticks through an entire tuning, and that's understandable because you don't know what I'm doing. But yeah, that's part of the fun, though. Definitely relating with people.
Well, and again, so we were saying you don't meet many piano tuners knocking door to door, let's say, but the same among piano tuners who are interested in historical tunings is even more rare. I would say 1 in 10. There's not much interest, I find.
It varies quite a bit, which is why I've started doing these videos, because I just, for many, many years I'd been doing, well, let's back up a little bit. I started getting into the historical tunings in the first place because just as I was a beginning technician, I started tuning, and I heard about this at the Guild. I heard that there was this seminar that was going to happen on historical tunings. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. I don't know anything about that. I'll go. It was an all-day seminar in another town, and it was Owen Jorgensen. And he was promoting his book, which I have here, his big red book, which weighs a ton. It's an awesome book, now out of print, unfortunately. But he had just written that, and he had 5 or 7 pianos in different tunings on the stage, and he sat, and they're all in different historical tunings, and he sat down and played, and from the first minute, he played some Liszt or something, and I'd played classical music for now, at that point, I don't know, a decade, and all of a sudden, that stuff, like, it sounded like typing, all of a sudden opened up into this whole new world. And it's not an exaggeration to say that my life changed at that moment. I just like, wow, I have to learn how to do this. This is amazing. It's just, life-changing. And so I started doing similar lectures later on after I learned how to do all this. I would tune three pianos, mostly to other technicians. In guild meetings or in conventions, I would, tune three pianos to different tunings and demonstrate just much like I do in the videos. And they all went, wow, it's great. And, some were accepting more than others. But mostly, and I would always tell people, especially I would say, you're going to laugh, but this is going to be a life-changing experience for some of you. And they kind of roll their eyes and like, yeah, sure. And then the ones who were pianists would come up after me and say, you were right. It is. It's something, and it would, but I wasn't really getting the message out to musicians. And so that's kind of why I thought it was time to start doing the videos so I could, kind of get it out more to the average pianist as opposed to just piano technicians who have an understanding of the technical part of it, but aren't really into the musical part of it as much.
Absolutely. Wow. I have a harpsichordist friend who said to me, you can tune a piano other ways. I thought it was designed to be an equal temperament.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I mean, I know it's early music. In the early music world, they're used to thinking about different temperaments. And in just classical piano world, it's just been lost among the musicians, as you say.
Well, and, this is nothing new for musicians who have worked on historical instruments, pianofortes and harpsichords. They've been tuning these temperaments for forever. It's only the recent innovation that we can do this on modern pianos too. Modern pianos are brighter and at a higher tension, so there are some differences. But yeah, I mean, so much of the literature was written for modern pianos. And for me, it's kind of I wouldn't say a pet peeve, but, when someone wants to perform a historical tuning but wants to do it on a historical instrument, it's fine, but it's okay. Like if they're going to do the well-tempered clavier, for example, they'll if they have a harpsichord they're playing on, they'll tune it in well temperament. But if it's a modern piano, they'll tune it in equal temperament, and that makes no sense because Bach wrote it for well temperament, and you lose everything. And just because it's a modern piano, there's no reason not to tune it in a well temperament. And so, so I'm a big advocate of historical tunings on modern pianos as well.
But how long does it take you to make these videos? I mean, you're tuning these things all these different ways. That's a ton of work, isn't it?
Yes. I got started, well, the first one I did was 6 years ago or something like that. And that was, I don't know, it was kind of a labor of love, and wasn't a big deal at the time. I mean, it took a while, but, I just set up a video camera and the sound quality wasn't great, and I hadn't figured out everything yet. I just wanted to get it done. But, with some decent playing. And, but then when the pandemic hit, I was like, okay, I'm staring at the ceiling, taking my fourth nap, and I'm like what am I going to do with myself now? And I've been thinking about doing this for a while anyway. And so I ordered all this equipment, sound equipment or whatever, to get, improve things a little bit, which is something I've, again, been thinking of doing for a long time anyway. But now I had the time, and so so I started doing more videos, and they were fun, and I enjoyed doing them. And especially like the Mozart one, I was learning so much along the way because I don't tune mean tone that often, and I learned a great deal by doing these videos. So I mean, and I played more Mozart than I've ever played in my life during those few months, and that was awesome, But they do take a while. I will not kid you. So yeah, you have to be your own sound technician, and that takes a while to figure out mic placement, and then once you figure that out, and then lighting, it's a challenge to figure out, okay, how do you do lighting? And the fun thing about YouTube and all of that is that you're kind of being your own, I don't know, grip and key man and sound guy, and so you're doing all that yourself, which is fun, and I've enjoyed learning the process. But it does take a while to do the setup in my living room, and then once you get it all set up, you're okay. Now I got to play this thing and do it until I get it right, and that takes time as well, and a lot of takes, but that too is enjoyable. I mean, it's a great process, and there's nothing that makes you more honest about your playing than hearing yourself recorded, and so you have to okay, I really did that? Okay, so I need to correct that. And so that too has been an education and a fun process. But yeah, the videos take a while, and then you got to do it all over again in another temperament. Yeah, it does take a while. The tuning part is the easiest part. I mean, that takes, I don't know, an hour, and that's no big deal. Although the piano does have to be voiced and made sure that it, to get it right because the acoustics are a little different in here and on video than I would normally play it. So the voicing is also a factor.
Wow, so like a couple days per video, or?
Yeah, I would say. Well, I'd be practicing. It depends on the practicing part. That takes a while, depending on the piece. And then, assuming that's more or less in order, then the setup and all of that takes about a half a day for the setup, and then the actual recording of the piece could take a couple days, maybe.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's about anywhere from a couple days to a week-long process, I suppose, for one video.
Wow. Yeah. Well, I mean, I felt like I wanted to ask because I want people to know how much time this takes. Like it is such a resource, I feel.
Well, thank you. I think that's very nice to hear, because, you're throwing this stuff out there and you really don't know. I hope that people, grasp it and stuff, but, yeah.
I showed my girlfriend some of these videos. I tune these things. I'm thinking about this all day. These are people that are into music, but not and it took a couple of the videos, with the comparison section, for her to start to say, okay, I'm starting to hear it. And as you say, people know it, they feel it. It's just being able to notice something specific and being able to hear the difference between how it should sound in equal temperament and how it does sound in a different temperament. But they always liked the difference. Once they identified it, they said, oh, I hear it and I like it. Whereas before they feel different, and that was all the best they could say.
Yeah.
So I think that's pretty incredible.
I think a lot of it has to do with today anybody can be listening on anything, so the higher quality of the speakers or your headphones that you're listening, that helps. But also, if you're hearing it in person, it's a whole different ballgame. It's, people hear it immediately. And I think that the most common thing I hear from people is that, oh, that sounds really emotional, the well temperaments, but the equal temperament sounds sterile or boring. That's it sounds good, but it sounds sterile in comparison. And you don't notice that's kind of a subtle comparison. But I think as a pianist, if you're playing this stuff, then your whole world really changes, because when you're playing this and really hearing these things, that becomes a completely different thing. I mean, you feel so much more emotion when you're playing, and you hear it. You respected these geniuses, composers before, you understood what they were doing. But when you also add to that what they were doing tonally with these keys, you respect them even more, because they knew what they were doing with that. I mean, it was common for them. They, grew up with it, which where we haven't today. But still, the way Chopin, for example, goes through the keys and the preludes, for example, all 24 keys like Bach did, and he's not only displaying these amazing etudes or preludes, but he's also doing them in displaying the keys as well, and utilizing the best features of those keys, and that to me is amazing. I mean, that they do that, and they did that, and they knew what they were doing, and when you play that, I mean, it's just mind blowing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think your Mozart videos, to me, Mozart was just somebody that has absolutely no interest to me. I just found his music so boring. And yeah, when you put them in mean tone or even just any other tuning, they really start to come to life. I thought that was incredible.
I really enjoyed doing that series, and yeah, it's hard, I think, because it shows three comparisons. You know, the mean tone, the well temperament, and the modern tuning, and so the difference becomes even more subtle between the different tunings, as opposed to if I went just from mean tone to equal temperament. But I think for the more advanced musician, to hear those differences was important, because it kind of gets watered down with each tuning, and it's more subtle, but it's also I think a valuable tool to understand that. Yeah, mean tone. It was really a joyous couple of months for me to be playing in mean tone in Mozart. It makes so much more sense in a lot of ways, and it's a little more gritty and raw, and but the major keys are more bright and happy and pure, and it was a lot of fun to play Mozart in mean tone, and experimenting with the different kinds of mean tone, because there's more than one kind of mean tone, and it took me at least a month to find a mean tone that I was happy with, that it seemed like Mozart might have used. The other ones, if you tried to earlier mean tones, for example, there's like Mozart would not have done this, So there's a little bit of what's the word I'm looking for? Conjecture on my part on what he might have used, because nobody knows. But it just kind of made sense to me musically that this 1/6 comma would really make the most sense for what I was hearing, at least. And somebody else may come to a different opinion about a different tuning, but that's what I kind of landed on.
Well, I think you've answered pretty much every question I can think of. I think the only thing I got to ask is the story of your piano.
Well, that's a good story, actually. His name is Lucky, the Wonder Piano. And hopefully I won't start crying when I talk about it. But it was I'd just gone through a kind of difficult separation, and I was on my own for the first time, and I had an upright piano, which was a nice piano, and I'd always wanted a grand. And this music director that I had been tuning for quite a while said, there's this piano that's available, that this Monsignor, who is 90 years old, passed away, and his family wants to sell it. And I said, okay, I'll check it out. And I looked at it, and it needed a little rebuilding on the inside, but I thought, it's a great piano. I would love it, but there's no way I can afford this at the time. This was 25 years ago. And I said, well, I'll make and actually I was buying a home at the time, and I told my realtor about this, and she said, well, what some people do is they'll tell the family, I love your house, and I think it's a great house, and I would really love to make an offer on it, but I can't really give you what I know you want for it, but I really love your house, and I'll take great care of it. And she said, why don't you try this? And sometimes they'll take that offer. And I said, okay, well, this is what I can afford. And so I wrote the family, and I said, this is, I'm a piano technician. I love the piano. I play the piano. I know the Monsignor. The Monsignor really loved the piano. He was known to be like a showboat Liberace of the Catholic world, apparently. And I wrote him, and I said, I'd love to, this is all I can offer, but I really love the piano. And I didn't hear anything. It went for months. And finally, I got a response from them. I got a call from the lawyer, who their son, the nephew actually of the Monsignor, was a lawyer, an attorney. And he says, our family was really touched by your letter, and we'd like to give you the piano. So they took my offer, and I immediately sent it to my favorite rebuilder in the area, who was a great guy. And he rebuilt it, and we've been here ever since.
Oh my goodness. 25 years later, and it still makes you cry. That's incredible.
That's the thing about pianos.
Yeah, they're special.
You would have to ask that question. Anyway, moving right along.
Getting misty around here.
Look at me. Play Misty. Yeah, anyway, so
Wow.
that's probably a good place to end this.
Yeah. Thanks, Carl.
Thank you so much for suggesting this thing. It's a fantastic idea, and I'm glad you did. And it's not too many people who can get me to cry on camera. So
Can give a what?
Get me to cry on camera.
Oh my goodness. Well, I'll take that as a compliment.
I think so. Anyway.
Making me cry too. What's going on?
There's something about the piano that's like no other instrument, that it just has, whenever there's custody fights and divorces and whatever else, it's always about the piano and the kids. You know, it's one of those things that's very, very special. So.
Jeez. Should I tell you about my piano just to be fair?
Sure, please do.
All right. God, I don't think tears are gonna come out, but it definitely felt the emotion. I actually feel kind of bad. So it's a Heinzman. Do you know about Heinzman?
I've tuned a few, I believe, but they're not that common.
Yeah, not south of the border. Yeah. They are. If you have a list of pianos that are worth rebuilding, they're on the list. I mean, they are a fine piano maker, Canadian, based out of Toronto. And this one's really special. So I really love a rebuilder in town. I used to be their neighbor. They're just so nice, and I would play on their pianos when I didn't own one. And they're just Montreal pianos. They're fabulous. And so I wanted one that they'd rebuilt. So I'm just flying through Kijiji, and there's someone. Excuse me, my clock. Someone up in Rivière-du-Loup, which is pretty far down the river. It's like a 7-hour drive away. Was selling her piano that they'd rebuilt like 20 years ago. And she's a piano teacher, but she just lives in an apartment. She's like, I can't even play it or really enjoy it anymore. But she's owned it for like 20 years or 30, 40 years. So you could feel it was really emotional. And she's trying to sell it. It's beautiful, and nobody wants it. They want their Steinway, they want their digital piano. So her price has just been falling for a long time. And so anyway, so that's the only way I could afford it.
How long have you had it?
What's that?
How long have you had it?
Just under a year, like 6-7 months. 7 foot. It was like used to be in a little theater, I think, and then she owned it for a while. I love it. And she had to take a crane to get it out of her house.
Oh my gosh.
9 yards. Yeah, it's you could just feel. I had her, poor me. I guess I do get people to cry on camera. I had her like, her name is Joanne. I said, can you do like a final concert? And I'd love to record it and just have it as part of like the memorabilia. And I really want to remember her loving up this piano through owning it.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think I demolished her a little. What can I say? I really meant it though. It means it. I think about her all the time, and she has a little digital, and I know she misses it, but she knew it was time to let it go.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, maybe you can show her this video.
What's that?
Maybe you can show her this video.
Yeah. And I should give her a call. I like to just call her and just see how she's doing. So.
Cool.
Anyway, so that's the story.
Thanks for sharing that. That's great.
Yeah, 1951. Yeah.
Nice.
Heinzman. Yeah.
Well, I'm sure it's in good hands.
I'm doing my best. Yeah, it's sort of like, I need a dehumidifier. oh, it's too warm in here. I need an air conditioner. This thing is like a baby. Like I need diapers to wipe it, I guess. I don't know. I need to learn a lot about how to repair the what's it called? The sostenuto, the middle one,
The
the middle
Sustanudo,
pedal,
yeah.
sostenuto pedal.
Yeah.
Some of it's working, sometimes it's not. You know, I couldn't even get the keys out. So it's a learning project, but I'm going slow and making sure I know what I'm doing.
That's how the best of us start. So yeah, that's great. This
Yeah,
piano's been through more revisions than new hammers, new key weighting system. I mean, I mean, I just recently put on different pedal rods. I mean, so they're adjustable. I mean, so it's always always getting tweaked. My Zoom time is going to run out any second, so
all right.
I'm afraid we have to say goodbye. But thank you so much for doing this. This was fantastic, and I really enjoyed it.
Pleasure. Me too. I'm so excited to see what becomes of this, and thanks so much.
Thank you too.
All right.
All right, bye, David.